Last night, though, there was a debate, and through between 12 candidates up on the stage last night for the Democrats. Your analysis: who won, who lost?
Well, I think that the person who continues just to continue sliding is Joe Biden, and you saw that also in the report on finances and the fact that he's now fallen behind both Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders in fundraising. And I think he'll just continue to decline. Probably psychologically, Warren won because everybody attacked her, and that was a pretty good signal that she's now the front runner. And I think the question will be over the next 2 or 3 weeks, can she handle the pressure of, the news media is going to pile on, all of her opponents are going to pile on. At some point, I suspect Trump will pile on. But she should feel pretty darn good that clearly psychologically last night she was the front runner. Maybe the biggest loser was O'Rourke, just from the standpoint that when Buttigieg went after him, O'Rourke looked totally unable to defend himself.
Yes.
He did not do well.
And his campaign has increasingly been a disaster, that Beto O'Rourke we're referring to. Speaker Gingrich, the other guy who was on stage who is one of the so-called frontrunners is Bernie Sanders. Now, the Vermont senator just 2 weeks ago suffered a heart attack. That topic did come up last night. I'm interested in your perspective on how that exchange went. And also, do you think that his health, being in as perilous a state as it is, should be considered disqualifying for him to be president of the United States?
Well, no, I think that if Sanders has come back, and we certainly all wish him well and hope he does recover, I think that the key question there is, can he come back and prove just by campaigning? I mean, you run for president. It's a very physically grueling and psychologically grueling phenomena. If he gets through the next 60 or 90 days, and he has energy, and he's on the top of his game, and he's able to be in the debates, and people will say, yeah, okay, he had a heart attack. I mean, Eisenhower had a heart problem in 1956 and got reelected. So people can judge for themselves how serious it is. Obviously, his doctors have told him he's well enough off to continue campaigning, or he wouldn't be out there on the stump trying to do this. But I think you have to start from that premise of, let's see over time how he's doing.
One of the things that really struck me last night was that Elizabeth Warren refused repeatedly to answer the question of whether her Medicare for All plan would raise taxes. And she kept saying it will lower costs for everyone. She refused to say that. And she was hit by the debate moderators. She was hit by Pete Buttigieg about it. Bernie went after her. Amy Klobuchar went after her. Everyone went after her for refusing to acknowledge that this is going to happen, that it's going to raise taxes. How long can she keep up not acknowledging this? And are the American people smart enough to see that what she refuses to say and that it's going to raise their taxes?
Well, I think that she's playing a game here, which I think is actually a mistake on her part. I think one of her strengths has been the sense that she's different. And part of that difference was that she had ideas, she had plans, she could be out there and she could say these things. I think to the degree that she starts to sound like a normal politician, in the long run, that actually weakens her. And I think her argument, I don't happen to agree with her policy, but her basic argument is that on balance, the total you will spend will be less because I'm going to save you so much on premiums that you actually will be better off. Well, she ought to just make that straight out and not allow herself to get sucked into this kind of a running fight where the question now is going to be about why she's not willing to be honest. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem that she's setting herself up for, is that she's in an argument now about her core honesty rather than just getting it out in the open. It's not a policy I agree with. I think, in fact, it would be a disaster. But you can at least understand that her case ultimately is that her kind of approach to health care will be cheaper, and it'll cost you, and Bernie's honest with us. I mean, Sanders says, look, everyone's going to pay a little bit more in taxes, right, but they're going to be better off in other ways. Well, that she'd be much better off to adopt Sanders' position, since the truth is she has Sanders. I mean, she and Sanders are basically alike on this issue.
Well, speaking of not doing something out in the open, you have Nancy Pelosi announcing yesterday that this impeachment so-called inquiry that she's been conducting will continue at pace and that she will not hold a vote to authorize an actual Trump impeachment inquiry. What is Nancy Pelosi doing? You were Speaker of the House. What is she doing strategically right now?
Well, look, I think what happened to her was that she got rushed by the emotional energy of the left, because in some ways AOC is now the spiritual leader of the House Democrats and Nancy's the titular leader. And I think she tried to appease them, and in doing that, she ended up in a position where she rushed out without having seen the whistleblower's statement, without having read the president's transcript of the phone call, without knowing exactly what she was doing, forward, basically to take the heat off from the left wing of her party. Then Schiff mishandled it so badly, with his fancy, dishonest opening statement that was all made up of lies, with the way they're running this in secret, that the process is beginning to go against him, and they're beginning to get more and more articles and more complaints that, in fact, what they're doing is cheating and not the right way to do it. And I have a hunch, I don't know this, but just having been both the Republican whip and the Speaker, I have a hunch that's what's happened is that her marginal members, I mean, take Peterson in Minnesota, who was in a district that was 30 points for Trump. Now, he doesn't want to take a vote on an investigation which he knows is, in fact, going to die in the Senate. I mean, nobody seriously believes that the Senate Republicans are going to vote to convict Donald Trump.
Yeah, and the reporting suggests by the way, Mr. Speaker, and I'm sorry we're out of time, but it does suggest that you're right. It's vulnerable House Democrats from swing districts that are really worried about all of this, and they should be. Thank you, Speaker Gingrich. Always good to talk to you, sir.
Good talking to you. Bye-bye.